You have felt it, have you not? That nagging suspicion that the more you give, the less you receive. That exhausting cycle of trying harder only to watch her drift further away. You compliment her endlessly, agree with everything she says, worship the ground she walks on, and somehow, the more you adore her, the less she seems to respect you. And you are left wondering what is wrong with you, what you are doing wrong, why you are not enough. But here is the brutal truth that most men never hear. The very thing you think makes you attractive, your constant validation, your eager approval, your desperate need to make her feel special, is actually the thing pushing her away. It is not your fault. Nobody ever taught you this, but today, that changes. This is not about being cruel. It is not about playing games. It is about understanding a psychological trigger that most men completely miss. And when you get this right, something shifts. She stops seeing you as predictable. She stops putting you in the friend zone. She starts wondering why you are different from every other guy who has been easy to figure out. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that we should not seek to have events happen as we wish, but to wish them to happen as they do happen. And when it comes to attraction, this is a profound truth. You cannot control whether she is attracted to you. You cannot control whether she gives you her approval, but you can control how you show up. Whether you are grounded in your own worth, whether you are a man who does not need her validation to feel complete. And that, ironically, is what makes her want to give it to you. The way you treat her ego determines whether she sees you as a challenge worth pursuing or just another guy seeking her approval. This is not about games. This is about balance. And by the end of this, you will understand the one thing that separates men she forgets from men she cannot get out of her head. The more you have been trying to make her feel special, the more you have been pushing her away. Let us start with the uncomfortable truth. Why being too nice to her ego is killing your chances. And if you think respecting her means never challenging her, you are about to see why that is costing you everything. Picture this. You compliment everything she does. You agree with every opinion she shares. When she posts a picture, you are the first to comment with heart eyes. You never disagree. Never push back, never make her work for your validation. And somehow, the more you worship her, the less she respects you. Sound familiar? Here is what is really happening. You are not respecting her. You are pedestaling her. And deep down, she knows the difference. When you treat someone like they are perfect, like they can do no wrong, like their ego should never be questioned, you are doing something dangerous. You are removing all tension from the dynamic, and attraction dies in comfort. Think about it. Every person she has ever been obsessed with made her feel something unpredictable. They did not hand her their approval on a silver platter. They made her earn it. They challenged her worldview. They did not crumble when she tested them. But you are safe, predictable, always available, always validating, always there to boost her ego no matter what. And that is exactly why she does not feel anything for you. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. When your thoughts are colored by desperate need for her approval, your soul reflects that. You become anxious, reactive, and emotionally dependent. And that dependence is felt by her, even if she cannot name it. Now, before you think I am telling you to be a jerk, hold on. Because what I am about to reveal is the exact opposite of what you think. A healthy ego needs resistance. It needs to be checked. It needs to encounter someone who is not afraid to see through the performance. When you never challenge her ego, when you worship instead of relate to her as an equal, you are not showing respect. You are showing weakness, and she can feel it. In fact, there is a specific moment where she decides you are not the one, and it happens earlier than you think. It happens the first time she tests you and you fold, the first time she pushes back and you crumble, the first time she gives you attitude and you apologize for existing. That is the moment she realizes you are not the kind of man who can hold his ground. And once she realizes that, the attraction is already on life support. The philosopher Seneca wrote that we should not be ashamed to learn what we do not know. And what you are about to learn is how to hold your ground without being cruel, how to challenge her ego without tearing her down, and how to become the kind of man she cannot stop thinking about. So, if constant validation pushes her away, what actually draws her in? That is where the real psychology begins. Here is the first principle, and it goes against everything you have been taught. Stop agreeing with everything she says. Not to be difficult, not to argue for the sake of it, but because you actually have your own thoughts, your own standards, your own perspective. When she says something you disagree with, say so calmly, confidently, without apologizing for having a different view. I actually see it differently. That is interesting, but I think you are missing something. Now, I do not agree with that at all. This does something powerful. It shows her you are not performing for her approval. You are not shape-shifting into whatever version of yourself you think she wants. You are just you. Take it or leave it. And that confidence, that is what creates attraction. The philosopher Epictetus taught that no great thing is created suddenly. And the kind of presence that makes a woman respect you is no exception. It is built through the accumulation of small moments, each one building on the last. Each time you hold your ground calmly, you build that presence. Each time you refuse to fold under pressure, you build that presence. And as you build it, it becomes part of who you are. But here is where most guys mess this up. They disagree just to disagree, and that backfires hard. The key is calibration. You are not trying to start arguments. You are not trying to prove her wrong. You are simply refusing to abandon your own perspective to make her comfortable. There is a difference between challenging and attacking. Challenging says, I see things differently, and I am not afraid to say so. Attacking says, you are wrong, and I need to prove it. One creates respect. The other creates resentment. The Stoic philosopher Zeno of Citium taught that the goal of life is to live in agreement with nature. And it is human nature to be drawn to those who are grounded, who are not grasping for approval. When you hold your ground calmly, you are living in agreement with that nature. You are not fighting against your own instincts. You are honoring them. Next, do not always be impressed. She tells you about some achievement, some accomplishment, something she is clearly proud of. And instead of falling over yourself with praise, you acknowledge it and move on. That is cool. What is next for you? Not cold, not dismissive, just unbothered. Because impressive people do not get overly impressed by others. They recognize value without worshipping it. This recalibrates her entire perception of you. Suddenly, you are not like the other guys who treat her like a celebrity. You are someone operating on the same level. And watch what happens next. Her brain does something fascinating when you respond this way. She starts to wonder why you are not more impressed. She starts to question whether she needs to work harder to earn your admiration. She starts to see you as someone whose approval is not guaranteed. And that is when attraction begins to build. The philosopher Cleanthes, who succeeded Zeno as the head of the Stoic school, wrote that the fates guide the willing, but drag the unwilling. When you are willing to hold your ground, you are guided toward respect. When you are unwilling, when you fold under pressure, you are dragged into irrelevance. Playfully call out her behavior. When she is being dramatic, do not validate the drama. Smile and say, you are being extra right now. When she is fishing for compliments, do not take the bait. Say, you already know you look good. Why do you need me to tell you? When she tests you with attitude, do not react emotionally. Stay calm and say, is that how we are doing this today? This single shift in how you respond will change everything. This is not being mean. This is refusing to play along with ego-driven behavior. And when you do this, something clicks in her mind. You are not desperate for her approval. You have standards. You have boundaries. And that is rare. The philosopher Seneca wrote that nothing is as destructive to inner peace as depending on what is not within our control. When you stop depending on her approval, you stop being controlled by her moods. You become free. And that freedom is what makes you magnetic. Here is another layer. Create space when she expects attention. She sends you a selfie, clearly looking for validation. Do not respond immediately with the desperation she is expecting. Wait. Reply later with something neutral or even skip it entirely. She posts something online. Do not be the first one there. Do not always be available to boost her ego in public. Why? Because when your validation is not guaranteed, it becomes valuable. She starts wondering why you are not reacting the way everyone else does. And that question marks the beginning of intrigue. The philosopher Epictetus taught that we should not be upset by what we do not have, but rejoice in what we do. When you create space, you are rejoicing in your own life. You are not waiting for her to fill a void. You are already full. And that fullness is what makes her want to be part of your world. But here is the most important part. Build a life that does not revolve around her. This is the foundation everything else rests on. You cannot challenge her ego in a healthy way if your entire identity is wrapped up in getting her attention. Hit the gym. Build your career. Develop skills. Spend time with friends. Create moments worth sharing. When she sees you are genuinely focused on your own growth, when she realizes she is not the center of your universe, her ego takes a hit. But not in a destructive way, in a way that makes her rethink her position. She thought she had you figured out. She thought you would always be there waiting, validating, chasing, and now you are not. And this is the exact moment everything flips. She goes from being the prize to wanting to be your prize. That disrupts her entire mental model of who you are. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should waste no time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. When you build a life that is meaningful, when you become a man of substance, you do not need to chase anyone. The right people will find their way to you. Finally, when you do give her attention, make it count. This is the balance. You are not ignoring her completely. You are not being cold or cruel. You are just selective. When you compliment her, make it specific. Make it about something real, not just her appearance, her mind, her humor. Something that shows you actually see her, not just the Instagram version. But do not do it constantly. Make it rare enough that it stands out. And here is the secret timing that makes this 10 times more powerful. When the dynamic shifts, when she starts reaching out more, starts investing more, do not immediately go back to your old patterns. Stay consistent with your standards. That is how you go from being forgettable to unforgettable. The philosopher Epictetus wrote that we should not be ashamed to learn what we do not know. And what you are learning now is the art of balance, the ability to hold your ground without being cruel, to challenge without attacking, to create attraction without manipulation. The real point of all this is self-respect. It is refusing to shrink yourself to make someone else feel superior. It is treating her like an equal, not a goddess. It is understanding that real attraction comes from mutual respect, not one-sided worship. And if you have been doing the opposite until now, do not worry. You can turn this around. Even if you have already messed up, when you challenge her ego in healthy ways, you are not tearing her down. You are inviting her to rise up and meet you at your level. You are showing her what it is like to be with a man who has his own identity, his own standards, his own life. A man who does not need her validation to feel whole. And ironically, that is exactly what makes her want to be part of your world. The guys who understand this never chase. They choose. And they are the ones she thinks about at night. So stop pedestaling. Stop seeking approval. Stop treating her ego like it is fragile. Treat her like a human being. Challenge her when it is needed. Stand your ground. Live your life. And watch what happens when you stop and start choosing yourself. Because here is the truth nobody talks about. The moment you stop needing her is the moment she starts needing you. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that no man is free who is not master of himself. When you master your own need for approval, you are truly free. You are free from the anxiety of wondering whether she likes you. You are free from the desperation that comes with chasing validation. And that freedom is what makes you irresistible. Not because you are trying to be, but because you have stopped trying to be anything other than yourself. If this hit different, drop a comment with the word respect so I know you are ready to level up. And hit that subscribe button because we are just getting started. Seriously, if you made it this far, you are already ahead of 90% of guys out there. The philosopher Seneca wrote that the greatest cure for the mind is trust in the one who is advising. When you trust your own judgment, when you trust your own worth, you do not need to look outside yourself for validation. You respond from within. And that inner trust is what makes you unshakable. Stay grounded, stay present, and I will see you right here in the next one.